Commander Jake Morrison stared out at the stars from the bridge of the UES Victory. The massive ship moved silently through space toward a destination that would change everything for humanity. After 50 years of sending radio signals into the darkness and getting nothing back, the Galactic Council had finally answered. They wanted to meet Earth's representatives face to face. Jake felt his heart beating faster as he thought about what this meant. Humans were no longer alone in the universe. There were other intelligent beings out there, and they had been watching Earth for decades. The Council had sent a simple message through quantum transmission that arrived 3 months ago. It said that humanity was ready to join the galactic community and should send their best people to the Council's headquarters. The ship carried Earth's most important people for this historic mission. Admiral Lisa Carter stood near the main viewing screen, her gray hair tied back in a tight bun. She had fought in 3 wars on Earth and never lost a battle. Her sharp eyes missed nothing, and Jake knew she was already thinking about how to protect humanity if things went wrong. Dr. Nathan Brooks sat at his research station, studying everything they knew about alien biology. The thin scientist had spent his whole life wondering about life on other worlds, and now his dreams were coming true. Ambassador Helen Rodriguez walked between the crew stations, checking on preparations for the meeting. She had negotiated peace treaties between Earth's most stubborn nations and spoke 12 different languages. If anyone could make humans look good to aliens, it would be her. Captain Ryan Hayes worked at the navigation controls, making sure their course stayed perfect. Jake trusted Ryan with his life, and today that trust might be tested. The Victory was humanity's first ship built specifically for meeting aliens. It had the most advanced technology Earth could produce, including quantum communicators, energy shields, and weapons that could destroy asteroids. The ship also carried gifts from Earth: art, music, literature, and scientific discoveries that showed the best of human civilization. Jake hoped the aliens would be impressed. As they got closer to their destination, the sensors started picking up artificial structures. Jake ordered the main screen to show what lay ahead. Everyone on the bridge stopped talking and stared. The Council's headquarters was beyond anything humans had imagined. A space station the size of a small moon orbited a blue and green world. The station was made of what looked like crystal and metal fused together, with lights that pulsed in patterns like a heartbeat. Hundreds of ships moved around it, some so strange that Jake couldn't figure out which end was the front. "My God," whispered Dr. Brooks. "Look at the size of that thing." Admiral Carter nodded slowly. "They've been building out here for a long time. This didn't happen overnight. A message came through their communication system, but not in any human language. The ship's computer worked to translate it, and after a few seconds, words appeared on Jake's screen. "Earth Vessel Victory, you are cleared to dock at Bay 47. Follow the guidance lights. Welcome to the Council." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The message was polite, but something about it felt cold. He shook off the feeling and ordered his pilot to follow the alien instructions. The Victory moved slowly toward the massive station, passing ships that looked like they were made of living coral, others that seemed to be pure energy held in force fields, and some that were so strange Jake couldn't tell if they were ships or creatures. The docking bay was huge enough to hold 20 ships the size of the Victory. As they settled into position, Jake could see aliens moving around outside. Some walked on 2 legs like humans, others floated in the air, and a few crawled along the walls like giant insects. The variety was amazing and terrifying at the same time. Ambassador Rodriguez straightened her formal dress uniform and picked up the case containing Earth's gifts. "Gentlemen, lady, this is the moment humanity has been waiting for. Let's make our species proud." They walked through the airlock into an atmosphere that smelled like flowers and ozone. The artificial gravity felt slightly lighter than Earth normal, making each step feel like a small bounce. Alien beings watched them pass, some with curiosity, others with what looked like indifference. Jake noticed that none of them seemed particularly excited to see humans. A tall, blue-skinned creature with 4 arms approached them. When it spoke, a translation device made its words understandable. "I am Guide Senth. The Council is ready for your presentation. Follow me and do not touch anything." They walked through corridors that curved and twisted in ways that hurt Jake's eyes to follow. The walls showed images of alien worlds, some beautiful beyond description, others so strange that Jake wondered how anything could live there. He counted at least 30 different types of writing systems scrolling past on information displays. The council chamber took Jake's breath away. It was a crystal dome so large that clouds formed near the ceiling. 47 different alien species sat in sections designed for their specific needs. Some breathed water and sat in tanks. Others existed as pure energy and flickered like flames. And a few were so alien that Jake couldn't tell where they began or ended. At the center of it all sat the most impressive creature Jake had ever seen. High Counselor Thexvar of the Hegemony was 12 feet tall with skin that looked like polished metal and eyes that glowed with their own light. When it spoke, its voice filled the entire chamber without seeming to be loud. "Humans of Earth," it said, "you have been observed. Your species shows potential for growth. The Council has decided to offer you membership in our alliance." Ambassador Rodriguez stepped forward and began the speech she had practiced 1,000 times. She talked about humanity's hopes for peace, their desire to learn from other civilizations, and their willingness to contribute to the galactic community. Her words echoed in the vast chamber, but Jake noticed that most of the aliens seemed bored. When she finished, Thexvar nodded once. "Your enthusiasm is noted. The Council grants Earth probationary membership. You will be given administrative rights to Sector 7G on the Galactic Rim. Develop these worlds as you see fit. Prove your worth, and full membership may follow." Jake felt excitement rush through him. Humanity had entire worlds to colonize and develop. They were finally part of something bigger than just Earth. Admiral Carter looked pleased. Dr. Brooks was practically vibrating with excitement, and Ambassador Rodriguez smiled with satisfaction. What none of them knew was that Sector 7G had been empty for good reason. It was the buffer zone between civilized space and the Devourers, mechanical creatures that consumed entire planets. The Council had just handed humanity a death sentence disguised as a gift, and the humans left the meeting thinking they had won the lottery. As the Victory departed the Council station, Jake looked back at the massive structure and felt proud of what humanity had accomplished. They were no longer alone in the universe. They had friends among the stars. He had no idea that those friends had just betrayed them. 3 years had passed since humanity received their gift from the Galactic Council. The worlds of Sector 7G were nothing like the paradise planets shown in Council promotional materials. Every single world was harsh, cold, and barely able to support life. The soil was poor, the weather was terrible, and resources were buried so deep that mining took enormous effort. But humans did what they always did when faced with impossible challenges. They adapted and survived. On the world they named New Colorado, miners worked day and night to extract rare metals from dangerous underground caverns. The planet's gravity was 30% higher than Earth, making every step feel like carrying a heavy backpack. But the miners got stronger and learned to work efficiently in the crushing environment. The agricultural world of Green Valley wasn't green at all. It was a frozen wasteland where nothing grew naturally. But human engineers built massive dome cities with artificial atmospheres where crops could survive. The domes required constant maintenance and used enormous amounts of energy. But families lived there and children were born under alien stars. Captain Alex Turner commanded the exploration vessel UES Horizon as it mapped the outer edges of human space. Alex was a former military pilot who had volunteered for the most dangerous assignment in human territory. The Horizon was fast and well-armed, designed to investigate anything unusual and get back to report what they found. Dr. Sarah Martinez worked as the ship's chief scientist. She had given up a comfortable teaching position on Earth to study the strange phenomena they kept finding in Sector 7G. The space around human worlds was full of unusual energy readings that didn't match anything in Earth's scientific databases or the limited information the Council had provided. For months, the Horizon had been tracking these energy signatures as they slowly moved closer to human space. At first, Sarah thought they might be natural phenomena like stellar wind or gravitational waves from distant black holes. But the patterns were too regular, too organized to be random events in space. The breakthrough came when they were investigating the dead system at the very edge of human territory. The Horizon's sensors detected a massive energy spike coming from the direction of unexplored space. Alex ordered the ship to investigate even though it meant going beyond their assigned patrol area. What they found changed everything. Floating in the darkness between stars was a structure the size of a city. It was clearly artificial, but unlike anything in the Council's databases, The structure was made of dark metal that seemed to absorb light, and it pulsed with energy patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Captain," Sarah called from her science station, "you need to see these readings. Whatever that thing is, it's not just moving toward human space. It's consuming everything in its path." Alex stared at the data streams flowing across Sarah's monitors. The structure had stripped 3 entire star systems of all matter, leaving nothing behind but empty space and radiation. Planets, asteroids, even the stars themselves had been somehow converted into raw materials and energy. "How is that possible?" Alex asked. Sarah's face was pale as she ran more calculations. "It's like a factory and a predator combined into one organism. It takes apart everything it encounters and uses the materials to build more copies of itself. Captain, there are energy signatures showing at least 50 more of these things. Heading our way." Alex immediately ordered a quantum burst message sent to Admiral Carter on the military command station orbiting New Colorado. The message contained all their sensor data and Sarah's analysis. Within hours, every human colony in Sector 7G received the same terrifying information. Admiral Carter wasted no time contacting the Galactic Council. She sent urgent messages requesting immediate military support and information about the approaching threat. The response came directly from High Counselor Thexavar himself, and it was not what anyone expected. "Admiral Carter," the message said, "the Council regrets that no military resources can be spared for Sector 7G at this time. Your species was granted those worlds to develop as you see fit. The Council has confidence that humanity will find appropriate solutions to any challenges you face. We wish you success in your endeavors." The message was polite but felt like a death sentence. Captain Ryan Hayes was the first person to understand what was really happening. Ryan had been studying Council politics and history during the 3 years since first contact, and he noticed patterns that others had missed. "Admiral," Ryan said during an emergency meeting on the command station, "I've been looking at Council territorial assignments going back 200 years. Every species that was given frontier sectors like ours faced similar threats within 5 years of their assignment. None of those species exist anymore." The room went silent as the implications sank in. Dr. Nathan Brooks, who had been so excited about meeting aliens, looked sick to his stomach. "You're saying the Council deliberately puts new species in danger?" Ryan nodded grimly. "It's worse than that. Look at the pattern of attacks. These machine creatures, whatever they are, have been consuming civilizations for centuries. But they never attack Council core worlds. They only hit the frontier sectors where new species are placed." Admiral Carter felt a cold anger building in her chest. "They're using us as a buffer zone." "More than that," Ryan continued. "They're using us as an early warning system. If we can slow down these machines or find a way to fight them, the Council learns valuable information. If we can't, then the threat eliminates a potential rival species without the Council having to do the dirty work themselves." The truth hit everyone in the room like a physical blow. The Galactic Council hadn't welcomed humanity into their alliance. They had sentenced humanity to death and disguised it as an honor. The beautiful ceremony, the gifts, the promises of friendship and cooperation, all of it had been an elaborate lie. Commander Jake Morrison received the report while visiting the mining operations on New Colorado. When he read Ryan's analysis, he felt something inside him break and rebuild itself into something harder and more determined. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and near extinction from nuclear weapons. They had climbed from caves to the stars in just a few thousand years. Now aliens thought they could use humans as disposable tools and then throw them away when they were no longer useful. Jake looked up at the alien stars shining through New Colorado's thin atmosphere and made a promise to himself and his species. If the Council wanted humanity to face these machine creatures alone, then humans would face them. But they wouldn't face them as the Council expected. They wouldn't die quietly and disappear into history like the other species that had been sacrificed. They would fight with everything they had, and they would make sure the galaxy remembered what happened when someone betrayed humanity. The news of the Council's betrayal spread through human space like wildfire. On every world, in every colony, and aboard every ship, people gathered to discuss what they should do next. Some wanted to pack up everything and flee deeper into Council territory, begging for protection from any species that would listen. Others demanded immediate revenge against the aliens who had lied to them. But Admiral Carter had a different idea entirely. She called for an emergency meeting of all senior human officials. The meeting took place on the command station orbiting New Colorado, in the same conference room where they had first learned the truth about their situation. Representatives arrived from every human world, some traveling for days through dangerous space to be there. General Patricia Stone was the first to arrive from Earth. She was a short woman with steel-gray eyes who had spent her entire career preparing for wars that everyone hoped would never happen. Her transport ship carried something that made everyone nervous, weapons and technology that officially didn't exist. Earth's governments had been secretly developing military equipment for decades, just in case humanity ever faced a threat that conventional weapons couldn't handle. Dr. Jennifer Walsh came from the research station orbiting Green Valley. She was the brilliant physicist who had designed humanity's quantum torpedo technology. The torpedoes used principles that most council species considered theoretical impossibilities. Jennifer had proven that human science could achieve things that aliens thought were fantasy. Commander Bobby Chen arrived from the outer colonies with detailed reports about civilian populations and evacuation possibilities. Bobby had been coordinating supply runs between the scattered human settlements and knew exactly how many people lived in each location. His numbers were sobering. There were now over 50 million humans spread across 12 worlds in Sector 7G. Captain Maria Santos represented the colonial militias. Each human world had organized local defense forces made up of miners, farmers, engineers, and anyone else willing to fight for their homes. The militias were small and poorly equipped, but they knew their worlds better than anyone and were absolutely determined to protect their families. The debate that followed was intense and emotional. Some representatives argued that fighting was suicide. The machine creatures had destroyed dozens of alien civilizations over the centuries. What chance did humanity have against enemies that could consume entire star systems? Others pointed out that running was also death, just slower and more humiliating. The council had made it clear that they considered humans expendable. Even if some humans managed to flee to council space, they would be treated as refugees at best and slaves at worst. General Stone listened to the arguments for hours before finally standing up to speak. Her voice was quiet, but everyone in the room stopped talking to hear her words. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "I've spent 40 years studying military history. Every species that ever amounted to anything had to face a moment like this. A moment when running seemed smart and fighting seemed crazy. The species that chose to run are footnotes in history books. The species that chose to fight, win or lose, are remembered forever." Dr. Walsh nodded in agreement. "Besides, we're not as helpless as the council thinks we are. I've been studying the energy readings from these machine creatures. They have weaknesses that can be exploited if we're smart about it." Admiral Carter made the final decision that would determine humanity's fate. "We fight, not because we think we can win, but because it's who we are. Humans don't kneel to bullies, whether they're from Earth or from the other side of the galaxy." The transformation of human space began immediately. Every research station stopped studying alien biology and started developing weapons. The scientists who had been excited about learning from other species now focused all their intelligence on finding ways to destroy mechanical invaders. Mining operations shifted from extracting materials for trade to producing military-grade metals and components. The harsh conditions that had made the human worlds seem like punishment now became advantages. Miners who could work in crushing gravity and toxic atmospheres were exactly the kind of people who could build underground fortresses and weapons factories. Agricultural domes were redesigned as manufacturing centers. The same technology that kept crops alive in hostile environments could be used to protect weapons production from enemy attack. Families were moved to the most secure locations while engineers converted their former homes into defensive positions. Captain Santos coordinated with the colonial militias to transform each world into a fortress. Mining tunnels became bunker systems. Industrial equipment was converted into weapons. Transport ships were fitted with military hardware. Everyone who could hold a weapon received training in combat tactics. The most important work was happening in Dr. Walsh's laboratory. She had made a breakthrough while studying fragments of destroyed alien technology. The machine creatures operated through a collective network that allowed them to coordinate attacks across vast distances, but networks could be disrupted if you knew the right frequencies and had enough power. "It's like a radio system," Jennifer explained to the military commanders. "They're all tuned to the same signal. If we can generate a powerful enough jamming burst on exactly the right frequency, their coordination will collapse temporarily. The project required building the largest quantum resonance array ever attempted. It would use power from 3 entire star systems and components that pushed human technology beyond its theoretical limits. Worse, it could probably only be used once before burning out completely. General Stone approved the project immediately. If we only get one shot, we better make it count. As the machine fleet grew closer to human space, every person in the colonies knew what was coming. They could have spent their time in panic or despair. Instead, they spent it working. Mothers taught their children how to operate mining equipment that had been converted into weapons. Elderly people who should have been enjoying retirement learned how to manufacture ammunition. Scientists who had never fired a gun practiced combat drills between research sessions. Jake Morrison visited every human world during the preparation period. He saw farmers welding armor plates onto crop harvesters. He watched teenagers learning to pilot combat ships built from mining vessels. He met grandparents who were volunteering for the most dangerous assignments because they wanted their grandchildren to have a chance at life. On New Colorado, he stood in the main mining complex that had been converted into a command bunker. The walls were lined with weapons that didn't exist in any council database. The air hummed with energy from shield generators that human engineers had built from scratch. Outside, the harsh gravity that had once seemed like a curse now served as a natural defense against invaders. "Are we ready?" asked Captain Ryan Hayes. Jake looked at the preparations around him and thought about everything humanity had accomplished in just a few months. They had taken worlds that were meant to kill them and turned them into weapons. They had united 50 million people across 12 planets in common purpose. They had built technology that would surprise enemies who thought they knew everything about human capabilities. "No," Jake said honestly, "but we're as ready as we can be." The first wave of machine creatures hit the outer edge of human space like a storm made of metal and death. Captain Alex Turner watched his sensors as thousands of dark shapes moved toward the mining colonies on the frontier worlds. Each machine was the size of a battleship, but moved with the precision of a living predator. They had been traveling through space for months, consuming everything in their path and growing stronger with each system they devoured. Alex commanded a fleet of 20 ships that had once been exploration and cargo vessels. His engineers had worked day and night to add weapons and armor, but everyone knew the converted ships were no match for purpose-built war machines. Still, the human fleet moved forward to meet the enemy because someone had to buy time for the evacuation of the outer colonies. The battle began when the machines entered weapons range of the human fleet. Alex gave the order to fire, and space lit up with energy beams and quantum torpedoes. The human weapons were surprisingly effective, tearing through machine formations and destroying dozens of the mechanical invaders. But for every machine they destroyed, 5 more appeared to take its place. Alex's flagship, the UES Frontier, shook under enemy fire as machine weapons punched through the hull. Half his crew was dead or wounded, but they kept fighting because they knew their families on the colonies were depending on them. When his weapons failed and his engines were destroyed, Alex made a decision that would be remembered in human history books forever. "All ships, this is Captain Turner," he said over the radio. "Ramming speed. Take as many of them with you as possible." The Frontier accelerated toward the largest machine in the enemy formation. The impact destroyed both ships in a flash of light that could be seen from the surface of nearby planets. Alex's sacrifice inspired his remaining crews to follow his example, and soon the space around the outer colonies was filled with the wreckage of both human and machine ships. The machine advance slowed, but didn't stop. They began landing on the surface of human worlds, and the real nightmare began. On the farming world of Green Valley, massive mechanical harvesters started consuming the agricultural domes that fed the entire sector. The machines didn't just destroy the food production facilities. They absorbed every atom of metal, plastic, and organic matter they could find. Colonel Danny Wright commanded the defense of New Colorado's main mining complex. Danny was a former Earth military officer who had come to the frontier looking for a quiet retirement. Instead, he found himself leading 5,000 miners and engineers in a desperate battle against machines that seemed unstoppable. The mining complex was built into the side of a mountain, with tunnels that went deep into the planet's core. Danny's people had spent weeks preparing for this moment. rigging explosives throughout the tunnel system and setting up weapons positions at every choke point. When the machines came, they found that fighting underground was very different from fighting in space. The machines were designed to operate in the vacuum of space and on planet surfaces. They had trouble adapting to the narrow tunnels and unstable geology of the mining complex. Danny's defenders used this to their advantage, collapsing sections of tunnel to trap machine units and triggering controlled explosions that brought down entire mountainsides. "Remember," Danny told his people over the radio, "these things are smart, but they're not creative. They follow patterns and expect us to do the same. Don't give them what they expect." The battle in the mines lasted for 3 days. Human defenders used mining equipment as weapons, industrial explosives as ammunition, and their knowledge of the tunnel system as their greatest advantage. When the machines tried to flood the tunnels with smaller repair units, the humans released toxic mining gases that corroded their electronics. When the machines tried to collapse the tunnels from above, the humans triggered avalanches that buried entire machine battalions. Meanwhile, Dr. Jennifer Walsh's quantum disruption array was finally coming online. The massive device had been built using components from a dozen different human worlds and required more power than some entire civilizations used in a year. Jennifer stood in the control room, watching energy readings that pushed human technology beyond anything they had thought possible. The array was located on humanity's most remote research station, hidden in the asteroid belt at the edge of human space. If it worked, it would send a quantum pulse through subspace that would disrupt the machine collective network across several star systems. If it failed, or if the machines found and destroyed it, humanity's last hope would die with it. "Power at 90%, called out Jennifer's assistant, Dr. Kevin Park. "All systems showing green." Jennifer watched the tactical display that showed machine fleets advancing on every human world. The battles were going badly for humanity. Even with all their preparations and advantages, they were outnumbered by thousands to one. The quantum array was their only chance to turn the tide. "Fire when ready," Jennifer ordered. The quantum pulse erupted from the array like invisible lightning, racing through subspace faster than light itself. On every human world in every battle, the effect was immediate and dramatic. The machines that had been moving with perfect coordination suddenly began making mistakes. Units that had been working together started attacking each other. Complex battle formations fell apart as individual machines lost contact with their command network. Admiral Carter seized the opportunity immediately. She had been holding the main human fleet in reserve, waiting for exactly this moment. Now she ordered every ship in human space to attack simultaneously, while the enemy was confused and disorganized. The battle that followed lasted 17 hours and involved every human ship, every colonial militia, and every person who could hold a weapon. On the surface of New Colorado, Colonel Wright's miners emerged from their tunnels to attack machine units that were wandering aimlessly without network guidance. In space above Green Valley, converted cargo ships engaged machine destroyers in close combat that left both sides heavily damaged. Captain Maria Santos led her colonial militia ships in boarding actions against disabled machine vessels. Her people fought their way through corridors filled with mechanical defenders, planting explosive charges in the enemy ship's power cores. One by one, the giant machines went dark and drifted powerless through space. But the quantum array could not maintain its output forever. Jennifer watched her power readings drop steadily as the massive device burned through components that could never be replaced. She knew they had minutes, not hours, before the system would overload and explode. "All units, this is Control," she broadcast to every human ship and ground force. "The disruption field is failing. You have 10 minutes before full enemy coordination returns." The final assault was desperate and brutal. Human ships that had been fighting for days made suicide runs against machine command vessels. Ground forces on every world launched simultaneous attacks against machine positions, using the last of their ammunition and explosives in one coordinated push. When the quantum array finally overloaded and destroyed itself in a flash of light that briefly outshone the local star, it took Dr. Jennifer Walsh and her entire research team with it. But their sacrifice had given humanity the victory they needed. The machine fleet, cut off from central coordination and suffering massive losses, began to retreat toward deep space. For the first time in centuries, the mechanical plague had been defeated by the species it was supposed to consume. But humanity's victory celebration would be very short, because the Galactic Council was already on its way to claim the rewards of human sacrifice. The celebration lasted exactly 3 days. Across human space, people gathered in the ruins of their cities and colonies to honor the dead and celebrate their impossible victory. Children who had learned to fight before they learned to read finally had a chance to play. Miners who had spent weeks underground emerged to see sunlight again. Engineers who had worked without sleep to build weapons finally allowed themselves to rest. Admiral Carter stood on the observation deck of her command station, looking out at the debris field that had once been the machine fleet. Human ships moved slowly through the wreckage, searching for survivors and salvaging anything useful. The cost had been enormous. Nearly half the human fleet was gone. Dozens of colonies lay in ruins, and tens of thousands of people were dead. But they had won, and that was more than anyone had dared hope for. The first sign that their troubles were not over came from long-range sensors. Commander Bobby Chen was monitoring the edge of human space when he detected quantum signatures approaching from the direction of Council territory. At first, he thought it might be refugees from other species fleeing the machine threat. Then he got a better look at the sensor readings and realized what was really coming. "Admiral," Bobby called over the emergency channel, "we have incoming ships, lots of them. Council military formations approaching from 3 different directions." Admiral Carter felt her celebration mood disappear instantly. She had hoped they would have more time to rebuild before dealing with the Council again. Apparently, the aliens had different plans. The Council fleet that arrived in human space was massive. Over 200 ships, including some of the largest battleships in the known galaxy. They moved with the confidence of a superior force that expected no resistance. The lead ship broadcast an identification signal that made everyone who saw it nervous. High Counselor Thexvar had come personally. Admiral Carter received the Council's transmission in her command center, surrounded by her senior staff. Captain Ryan Hayes stood beside her, his face grim as they watched the alien leader appear on their main screen. Thexvar looked exactly the same as he had 3 years ago, tall, metallic, and arrogant. "Admiral Carter," Thexvar said, his voice carrying the same cold authority as before. "The Council has become aware of recent events in this sector. Your species' reckless actions have disrupted carefully planned containment protocols for the mechanical threat." Carter felt anger building in her chest but kept her voice steady. "Reckless actions? We defended ourselves against an enemy that was trying to exterminate us. Your interference has scattered the remaining mechanical units across multiple star systems," Thexvar continued as if she hadn't spoken. "It will now take decades to track them down and eliminate them properly. The Council has determined that Sector 7G requires immediate supervision to prevent further complications." The real message came next, and it was exactly what Carter had feared. The Council wasn't here to congratulate humanity on their victory. They were here to steal everything humans had fought and died for. "All human military vessels will be impounded for safety inspections," Thexvar announced. "Human civilians will be relocated to a supervised reservation world where they can be properly monitored. The mechanical wreckage and quantum technology recovered from this conflict will be transferred to Council control for proper study and disposal." Carter looked around at her staff and saw the same expression on every face. Rage mixed with bitter understanding. The Council had planned this perfectly. They had expected humanity to die fighting the machines, leaving behind empty worlds and valuable technology for the Council to claim. When humans had the audacity to actually win, the Council simply decided to take everything by force. "The relocation will begin immediately," Thexvar continued. "Compliance is expected and required. Resistance will be met with appropriate force." Admiral Carter stood slowly, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. Every person in human space was watching this moment, waiting to see how she would respond to the alien ultimatum. She could surrender and hope the Council would treat human refugees decently. She could try to negotiate and maybe save some lives through compromise. Or she could do something that no species had ever done in the Council's long history. "Carter," activated the communication system that would broadcast her words to every human ship, every colony, and every listening post in their territory. Her voice would carry across the stars to reach everyone who called themselves human. "High Counselor Thexvar," she said, her words clear and strong, "humanity has listened to your demands. We have considered your offer to relocate us to a reservation world under Council supervision. We have thought about your plans to confiscate our ships and steal the technology we developed with our own blood and intelligence." She paused, letting the moment stretch as every human in space waited to hear what she would say next. In mining tunnels on New Colorado, Colonel Danny Wright and his surviving defenders stopped their reconstruction work to listen. On the farming worlds, families huddled around communication devices. In the space stations and aboard the remaining ships, crews abandoned their duties to hear their leader's response. "Our reply to the Galactic Council," Carter said, her voice, carrying the weight of human determination across the galaxy, "is just one word." The pause felt like it lasted forever. Every human held their breath. Every council ship waited for the expected surrender. The moment balanced on the edge of history. No. The word echoed through space as every human ship simultaneously powered up their weapon systems. The colonies that had survived the machine assault came online with defensive systems that had been rebuilt using captured technology. Mining facilities revealed themselves as disguised weapons platforms with firepower that made Council sensors scream warnings. Research stations that the Council thought were abandoned suddenly showed massive energy signatures as human scientists activated devices built from machine wreckage. The quantum disruption technology that had defeated the machines was already being adapted for use against Council ships. High Counselor Thexvar's expression changed from arrogance to concern as his tactical displays showed the true scope of humanity's preparation. These weren't the desperate refugees he had expected to intimidate. These were warriors who had faced extinction and chosen to fight instead of surrender. "You cannot stand against the entire Council," Thexvar warned, but his voice had lost its confident authority. Admiral Carter smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "You're right. We can't stand against the entire Council, but we're not fighting the entire Council. We're fighting you here right now, and we've learned a few things about fighting impossible odds." As the first human ships moved to engage the Council fleet, Admiral Carter activated a second communication system, one that broadcast not just to human territory, but to every world, every species, and every corner of the galaxy that could receive the signal. "This message goes out to every species that has ever been overlooked, dismissed, betrayed, or sacrificed by the Galactic Council," her voice declared across the stars. "Every civilization that was given impossible worlds to colonize. Every people who were placed in the path of danger to serve Council interests. Every species that was told to kneel and accept their fate." The message continued as human and Council ships began exchanging fire, as weapons that had never been seen before lit up the darkness of space, as humanity's war for independence began in earnest. "If you're tired of kneeling," Admiral Carter said, her words carrying hope to 1,000 worlds, "there's room to stand with us. The galaxy is about to change, and this time, the Council won't be the ones deciding how. The Galactic Council had ruled through fear and manipulation for thousands of years, convinced that superior technology and ancient authority made them untouchable, but they had made one critical error in their calculations. They had underestimated the species that had climbed from primitive caves to interstellar civilization in just a few millennia, driven by nothing more than stubborn refusal to accept that anything was impossible. And across the galaxy, on worlds that had been forgotten and dismissed by Council arrogance, other species began to listen to humanity's message and wonder if maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop kneeling and start standing up.